Let's begin, but I warn you, this is not comfortable. It's not gentle, and it's definitely not what you want to hear. But it may be the one truth that sets you free. Everyone talks about healing, about breaking cycles, about letting go of the past. But few are willing to name where those cycles truly begin. We like to keep things safe, external, abstract. We talk about toxic relationships, attachment styles, childhood trauma, but we rarely look into the deepest room of all. The one guarded by shame, fear, guilt. The one labeled mother. From the beginning, we were shaped by her voice, her moods, her gaze. Before we could name ourselves, we were defined by her. Before we could form boundaries, we absorbed hers. But this isn't about blaming her. This isn't about judgment. This is about the part of her you still carry inside. The part you haven't questioned. The voice that still decides whether you're worthy, whether you're safe, whether you're allowed to rest. Carl Jung warned us, what is not made conscious appears in your life as fate. The mother you think you've left behind, she's the one repeating herself through your relationships, your fears, your inner critic. You're not arguing with her anymore. You're arguing with her ghost. That's the trap. That's the prison. The mother complex is not about the woman. It's about the wound. And until you stop waiting for her to change and start reparenting the part of you she couldn't hold, you will stay trapped in emotional childhood. It's not your mother who controls you. It's the version of her you carry inside. And that is what we're going to confront. Before we move forward, take a moment to subscribe and turn on notifications to stay connected. Thank you for being here now. Let's move on. Not the woman herself, the one with a name, a history, a face, but the image of her that still haunts your inner world. The version your wounded inner child constructed. The one made of fragments. Her absence, her presence, her silence, her rage. The one that still shows up in your mind as the reason you can't love, fully trust deeply, or rest without guilt. That's not your mother. That's the myth. And until you confront it, you will keep battling shadows that were never meant to be real. The mother you remember is not the whole truth. It's the truth as your child self saw it. A story seen through survival-colored glasses. Maybe she was the one who tried, but never saw you. Maybe she was cold, critical, absent, chaotic. Maybe she gave everything and still left something crucial undone. Whatever she was, your memory of her is shaped by what you needed, not what actually happened. And when those needs went unmet, your mind filled the gaps with fantasy, blame, longing, or rage. You didn't just remember her, you built her. You constructed a psychic figure, a protector, a persecutor, or both. And now that figure rules you more than the real woman ever did. Idealization and demonization are two sides of the same unconscious coin. Both are distortions. Both keep you stuck. When you worship her, you chase her approval in everyone you meet. When you resent her, you push love away just to stay loyal to your pain. Either way, you're trapped. And it's not her holding the chain anymore. It's the story, the image, the myth you never questioned. That myth is not passive. It filters every decision you make about trust, connection, intimacy, and safety. It whispers in your ear when you fall in love. It guides your choices when you set boundaries or fail to. It shows up in your expectations, in your overreactions, in your silence. You don't see the world as it is. You see it through the lens of a child still trying to reconcile the mother they never quite had. Some of you are still emotionally fused with her. You over-identify with her pain, her story, her sacrifices. You carry her wounds like heirlooms. Others are stuck in permanent rebellion. You live in opposition to her defining yourself by what she was not. But whether you imitate her or reject her, she's still in control. Not the woman herself, but the emotional myth she became. You either stay small to protect her or burn down your life to escape her. And here's the truth. Most people avoid. Healing doesn't come from forgiving her or hating her. It comes from seeing her clearly, without the myth, without the mask, without the story your nervous system told itself to survive. She was not a goddess. She was not a monster. She was a woman, flawed, limited, shaped by her own mother, carrying her own unhealed story. When you allow her to be human, nothing more, nothing less, you break the spell. You don't need her to be perfect to heal. You don't need her to finally understand you. You don't need her to apologize or change or admit her mistakes. You need your clarity, your perception back. Because as long as you keep seeing your mother as all-powerful, you'll keep seeing yourself as helpless. And as long as you keep chasing the myth, you'll never build your life from a place of truth. Carl Jung understood that the mother archetype has immense power, not because of the actual woman, but because of what we do with her image in the unconscious. That internal image shapes identity, defines emotional survival, and colors our sense of what love should feel like. But it's not set in stone. It can be dismantled. It can be re-seen. And when it is, you begin to reclaim the parts of you that were frozen in her shadow. You can mourn what she couldn't give you and still rise. You can name the pain without worshiping it. You can love her as she is, or walk away completely and still be free. But only if you stop fighting the myth. Only if you stop making her more than human. Only if you finally choose to see not just her, but yourself clearly. Your mother is not a myth. She's a woman. And until you see her that way, you'll never see yourself clearly. How many times have you said it, "I will never become like her"? You clenched your jaw in silence, swore to yourself in the dark. You vowed to raise your children differently, love differently, speak differently, live differently. And yet you did. Maybe not in the obvious ways. Maybe you didn't repeat her words, but you echoed her fears. Maybe you didn't wear her face, but you carried her wounds. You avoided her mistakes so carefully that you missed the deeper truth. What we don't heal, we reenact, especially when we swear we won't. Your mind might have made promises, but your body keeps the oldest score. The nervous system is not bound by logic. It responds to what it knows, and what it knows is her. Her voice, her mood, swings her emotional absence or suffocating presence. You learned your emotional language in her arms. You learned how love feels, how danger feels, how approval is earned. And now, you speak that language fluently, often without realizing it. In your relationships, in your parenting, in your inner dialogue, in the way you silence yourself or rage without understanding why. The mother complex doesn't just haunt your memories, it animates your patterns. We recreate what is familiar, not because it is right, but because it is known. The chaos of childhood becomes the blueprint for adulthood. the emotional terrain your mother walked becomes the terrain you call home. Not because you want it, but because on some level, your nervous system believes it's safer to repeat the known pain than to face the terror of the unknown. So you return. Again and again. Same conflicts. Same heartbreak. Same ache, different faces. But avoidance doesn't heal emotional memory. Only integration does. You can't outrun the past. You can't fix it through performance or bury it in silence. You must name it. You must face the pattern not with shame, but with radical honesty. This is not about blaming your mother. This is about claiming yourself. True healing is not rebellion, it's redirection. It's choosing not to become the echo. It's saying, the pattern stops here. So yes, you may have become like her, but now you can become you. Not in reaction to her, not in rebellion, but in truth, in clarity, in power. Because healing isn't about changing her. It's about no longer waiting for her to do it first. To free yourself, you don't need revenge. You need revolution. And that revolution begins when you see the pattern clearly and decide once and for all that it ends with you. And here's where it gets even more subtle, more painful, more hidden, and far more dangerous than anyone wants to admit. You've broken some patterns. You've stopped yelling like she did. You've chosen better partners. You've begun to reclaim your voice. But still, something pulls you back. Quietly. Invisibly. As if every time you try to rise, a hand reaches from the past and reminds you not too high, not too fast, not too far. That hand is not hers anymore. It's yours. And it's called loyalty. Your loyalty is killing you, and you call it love. The wounded child in you is still trying to earn something, her love, her approval, her pride, by staying small. You think your suffering honors her sacrifice. You think your silence keeps the peace. You think your struggle proves your love. But it doesn't. It just keeps you locked in the same cage she never escaped. Somewhere deep inside, your unconscious still believes that to heal fully, to live freely, to love boldly, would be a betrayal. A betrayal of her pain. A betrayal of what she endured. A betrayal of what she never got to have. So you limit yourself. You keep your joy quiet. You sabotage your own success just enough that it never outshines hers. You downplay your healing. You postpone your freedom. You trade your light for a sense of emotional loyalty that nobody asked you to uphold. But it feels holy, doesn't it? It feels like love. It feels like devotion. And that's the most tragic part, because it's not. It's survival. It's a loyalty contract signed in childhood, sealed in silence, and buried so deep inside you that you think it's your personality. But Carl Jung taught that the shadow isn't always filled with rage or trauma. Sometimes the shadow is filled with love, twisted into self-destruction. A love that believes it must suffer to remain connected. A love that believes, if I get too free, I'll lose her. If I get too healed, I'll forget her. If I become more than what she was, I'll leave her behind. And your unconscious replies, I won't be freer than you, Mom. This is the root of so much quiet private suffering. The kind of suffering no one sees, because on the surface, you seem fine. You're not falling apart. You're just stuck. Stuck in jobs you've outgrown. Stuck in relationships that mirror her sadness. Stuck in cycles that don't break, but don't kill you either. Because staying stuck feels safer than soaring. because soaring feels like disloyalty. But here's the truth. You need to hear. Your pain doesn't honor her. Your unhappiness doesn't repair her. Your limitations don't prove your love. You are not responsible for her choices, but you are responsible for yours. You are responsible for the life you're building now. You are responsible for breaking the pact. And breaking the pact is not abandonment. It's maturity. It's the moment you stop being her emotional mirror and start being your own source. It's the moment you realize that loving her doesn't mean carrying her wounds like sacred burdens. Loving her doesn't mean shrinking so she doesn't feel forgotten. Loving her doesn't mean dimming your brilliance so she doesn't feel outshone. Real love says, I carry the lineage, but I do not repeat it. You have to be the one who says, this ends with me. I will not confuse self-sacrifice with devotion. I will not believe that joy is betrayal. I will not let my life become a monument to pain I didn't create. I will rise not in spite of her, but because I carry her within me. Because I carry every unspoken prayer she never got to say. Because I know what it cost her to survive, and I choose not just to survive, but to live. You've outgrown the behaviors. You've broken the cycles. You've stopped playing small, stopped chasing her love through self-betrayal. But even now, even here, she still lingers. Not in her voice, not in her presence, but in something more insidious, something quieter, something harder to trace. She's no longer in the room, but she's still in your psyche. And the truth is, that's where she's always had the most power. Carl Jung understood that the mother is not just a person. She is an archetype, a living symbol in the unconscious, vast and ancient and loaded with emotional weight. Before she was your mother, she was the mother, a force of nature, a blueprint etched into your nervous system long before you could think critically or speak your own name. She was the first mirror you looked into, the first sky you lived beneath. And now, even if she's long gone or still physically present, her psychological imprint shapes how you see the world. When that archetype goes unexamined, it distorts everything. It shows up in your lovers, your mentors, your spiritual guides, even your enemies. You're not interacting with them as they are. You're reacting to the echo of the mother you needed, feared, resented, or longed for. You think you're falling in love, but you're really falling into a pattern. You think you're standing up for yourself, but you're really still rebelling against her voice. You think you've chosen this life, but some part of you is still trying to fix what happened back then by replaying it now. And here's the tragedy. This isn't conscious. You're not choosing it. You're reenacting it. Because your psyche remembers what your mind forgets. The emotional blueprint of your early years becomes the lens through which you perceive adulthood. And without integration, that lens turns every relationship into a reenactment, not of connection, but of compensation. You keep choosing people who feel familiar, not because they are safe, but because they match the emotional texture of your past. Maybe you choose partners who never truly see you, just like she didn't. Maybe you chase approval from unavailable people because her love always felt just out of reach. Or maybe you reject closeness altogether because her closeness always felt like control. Either way, your life becomes a canvas for unfinished business. And you keep painting the same scene, hoping this time it ends differently. But it won't not until you realize the truth. You're not in love with these people. You're in love with the possibility that someone might finally rewrite the story for you. That someone might show up and nurture the parts of you she couldn't reach. That someone might love you so fully it erases everything she did or didn't do. But that kind of love, that kind of salvation, it's not love, it's lack. It's not connection, it's fantasy. And the more you chase it, the more disappointed you become. Not because others fail you, but because they were never meant to play that role. You don't need a mother anymore. You need a stronger you. That's the turning point. When you stop waiting to be rescued. When you stop asking others to fulfill a role they never agreed to play. When you stop projecting the archetype outward and begin integrating it inward. Integration doesn't mean erasing her. It means seeing her clearly, both the real woman and the psychic figure, and choosing finally to become your own center. This is where your relationships begin to change. You start seeing people as they are, not as who you wish they'd be. You stop romanticizing connection and start recognizing truth. You let go of the fantasy that someone else will finish your emotional sentence. And instead, you begin writing your own. You stop needing a mother because you become the adult who can hold yourself. You no longer search for her in the eyes of your partner, the warmth of your boss, the attention of your friends. You no longer beg for someone to heal a wound they didn't cause. You recognize that this is your task now, your responsibility, your power, your becoming. Jung taught that all archetypes carry potential. When unconscious, they possess us. When conscious, they empower us. The mother archetype is no different. When left in the dark, it breeds projection, confusion, unmet longing. But when brought into the light, when owned, held integrated, it becomes a source of profound self-nurturing wisdom and strength. So if she still shows up in your relationships, in your expectations, in your wounds, that's not failure. That's the psyche asking you to turn inward. That's your inner world begging you to stop searching for her in others and to start becoming what she couldn't give. Not because she was unworthy, but because you are now ready to take back the power she once held. If this has resonated with you so far, consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you won't miss more insights like this. Let's keep going. You've stopped blaming others. You've stopped chasing ghosts. You've stopped searching for your mother in your relationships, in your longing, in your fantasies. But something still hurts, doesn't it? Something quiet. Something private. Something you can't explain, even to the people who love you now. It's not her voice that's hurting you anymore. It's yours. No one is hurting you now. You're doing it to yourself. It's brutal to admit this, because for so long, you were the one who was wounded. You were the one who was overlooked, silenced, dismissed, minimized, and you survived. You built a life, built walls, built defenses. But what you didn't realize was that in surviving, you absorbed the very structure that once harmed you. You didn't just inherit the pain, you inherited the pattern. You learned to deny your own needs just as they were denied before. You learned to dismiss your feelings, criticize your softness, abandon your tenderness. Not because you wanted to, but because it became familiar. It became survival. You internalized the voice that once told you you were too much, too needy, too emotional, too sensitive, or maybe not enough, not worthy, not lovable, not important. That voice is no longer external. It lives inside you now, and it speaks every time you tell yourself to toughen up, every time you minimize your sadness, every time you override exhaustion, every time you whisper, "You don't have time for this." That's not discipline. That's repetition. You demand from yourself what others once demanded from you: perfection, silence, strength without softness, performance without rest. You parent yourself with the same conditional love you once received. You recreate emotional neglect, not because you want to suffer, but because your nervous system has mistaken pain for normalcy. Your body associates withholding with safety, and so you recreate it again and again, from the inside out. But here's what you need to know. You're not that child anymore. You're not powerless anymore. You are the adult now. And the child in you, the one who waited, who longed, who screamed into silence, that child is still waiting, still hoping, still watching, but now they're waiting for you. Carl Jung said, "You've become your own authoritarian figure." And if you're honest, you know it's true. You're harder on yourself than anyone else has ever been. You push, you criticize, you punish, all in the name of growth, all in the name of responsibility. But responsibility without compassion is just another form of abandonment. And that's what needs to stop. You learn to survive by ceasing to exist emotionally. You learn to make yourself small enough to not be a burden, to hold your breath so you wouldn't take up space. But survival isn't the same as living. And if you've come this far, if you've broken cycles, faced shadows, rewritten stories, then you're ready for something deeper. You're ready to stop surviving and start healing. That means mothering yourself in a way you were never mothered. Not with perfection, not with a checklist, but with presence, with patience, with permission to rest. It means listening to that small voice inside the one that says, "Please don't leave me again," and answering with open arms. It's time to stop abandoning yourself and start mothering the child who never got what they needed, because you are the only one who can. And once you do, everything begins to change. Not because you've escaped the past, but because you've finally chosen to stop living in it. If you've made it this far, if you've dared to look at the patterns, the wounds, the loyalty contracts, and the inherited myths, you're already doing the work that most people spend a lifetime avoiding. But there's one piece left. One voice you haven't confronted yet. One presence that still governs your choices, not with force, but with whispers. That critical voice in your head. It's not yours, but you believed it. It doesn't shout. It hovers. It comments. It corrects. It punishes. It questions your worth at the exact moment you begin to rise. You call it self-doubt. You call it perfectionism. You call it your inner motivator even. But it's not you. It's the internalized mother. Not the real woman who raised you, but the emotional tone she left behind. The judgment, the guilt, the withdrawal, the high expectations wrapped in love. This is the voice you internalized. This is the voice that grew louder every time your joy was too much, your needs were inconvenient, or your softness went unseen. Over time, you stopped questioning it. You made it normal. You lived by rules you never agreed to. Rules like rest must be earned. Joy should be quiet. Emotions are weakness. Mistakes are shameful. You obeyed, not because the rules were true, but because they were familiar. Because they felt like home. Because at some point in your childhood, survival meant compliance. And that voice became the only path to approval. But here's the truth. Jung spent his life trying to teach us what is unconscious controls you. And this voice, this internalized negative mother, will continue to shape your reality until you become conscious of it. You don't need to silence it. You need to see it. You don't need to fight it. You need to observe it. Because what you resist persists. But what you observe transforms. That moment of observation is the beginning of liberation. Because now, you're no longer fused with the critic. You're no longer believing the enemy is you. You're recognizing that the voice which once wounded you still lives inside. But your awareness, your capacity to witness it without collapsing, that is the scalpel that can cut it loose. This isn't about blaming your mother. It's about reclaiming your voice, your truth, your worth. It's about giving yourself what she couldn't: compassion without condition, love without judgment, space to breathe without having to earn it. The voice in your head will tell you that's selfish. It will tell you to be better, try harder, do more. But healing doesn't sound like do more. It sounds like come home. You've lived long enough under that voice. You've let it govern your confidence, your creativity, your capacity to feel safe in your own skin. But you don't have to anymore. You can question it. You can soften it. You can reparent it. And you must. Because if you don't, you will pass it on. And someone else will carry what was never theirs to hold. You are not the voice that wounds you. You are the awareness that can set you free. And the moment you see it clearly, the moment you separate from it, you begin to write a new voice. One that says, I am allowed to rest. I am allowed to feel. I am allowed to take up space. I am allowed to exist without apology. Because you are no longer that child. You are the one holding the pen now. And this time, the story gets to change. So now you've seen it, the voice that isn't yours, the pain you've repeated, the loyalty that has kept you small. You've seen the pattern. You've felt the weight. You've stared straight into the shape of the mother within you, her myths, her shadow, her silence. And now you're standing at the edge of something terrifying and beautiful, the realization that no one is coming to save you, because you're the one you've been waiting for. This is the part no one tells you. The part that sounds like loneliness, but is actually liberation. You are not meant to search the world for the mother you didn't have. You are meant to become her. Not perfectly, not all at once, but slowly, tenderly, with fierce compassion and conscious intention. You must become the one who sees you, the one who soothes you, the one who stays. Because healing isn't passive. It's not something that just happens after enough therapy sessions, journal pages, or affirmations. Healing is a practice. And that practice is radical self-mothering. It's becoming the warm presence you needed. It's speaking to yourself the way you always wished she would. It's showing up day after day in the small, invisible moments when the critic gets loud, when the shame starts to rise, when the tears come for no clear reason. That's when it matters most. That's when the mother within you is either recreated or reborn. You must become your own internal mother, not out of pride or defiance, but out of necessity. Self-care is not luxury. It's survival. Not the kind sold in glossy ads and bath bomb slogans, but the kind that whispers, "I've got you," when the world feels too heavy to hold. It's feeding yourself, resting when you're tired, breathing through the guilt instead of shaming it. It's wrapping your arms around the frightened part of you and saying, "You don't have to earn my love." Every act of tenderness toward yourself is revolutionary. Every time you choose softness over self-criticism, presence over performance, compassion over control, you're breaking the pattern. You're doing what she couldn't do. And that's not betrayal. That's repair. That's transformation. You are rewriting your lineage through your choices. You are interrupting the legacy of emotional starvation by feeding yourself what you were once denied. Carl Jung said, "Treat yourself like the child who just went through everything you've endured." That's not a metaphor. That's your work now. To meet yourself with reverence. To hold space for the ache without needing to explain it away. To mother yourself, not with perfection, but with presence. You don't need to be ideal. You need to be real, available, honest, kind. And yes, it will feel unnatural at first, because neglect is a habit, because criticism is familiar, because love without condition might feel suspicious. But keep going. Keep practicing. Because emotional freedom begins the moment you stop repeating the pattern and start rewriting the script. This isn't about finding her anymore. It's not about waiting for the apology, the breakthrough, the change. It's not about her. It never really was. This is about becoming the one who never leaves, the one who listens, the one who loves without asking for anything in return. This is about becoming the mother you never had and realizing you always had the strength to do so. Because in the end, healing is not about going back. It's about going inward. It's about showing up for yourself in the way no one else ever could. It's about becoming whole, not because someone rescued you, but because you finally remembered you were never broken, just waiting. You are not here to repeat her story. You are here to write your own. You were never meant to carry her pain like an inheritance. You were not born to echo her silence, her sacrifice, her shame. You were born to break the spell, to wake up in the middle of the storm and say it ends with me. You can't go back and rewrite what happened. You can't reach into the past and give that little child the safety they deserved. But you can choose right now how that pain will live inside you. Will it rule you, or will it refine you? Every conscious act of self-love breaks a generational chain. Every boundary you set, every breath you take without guilt, every time you choose presence over performance, you are disrupting the pattern. You are doing the work she may have never had the tools or privilege to do. And that is not betrayal. That is redemption. When self-love is born from healed pain, it becomes a silent revolution. You don't have to scream it. Just live it. Fully. Authentically. Unapologetically. Now that you've seen the truth, there is no going back. Not to blame. Not to waiting. Not to trying to fix someone who is never ready to face themselves. There's only forward now. And forward begins with you. So say it. Own it. Write it. I am the end of the pattern. Because you are. And the moment you choose to live like it, the healing becomes real. If this message stirred something deep within you, if it helped you see your story more clearly, please subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who's ready to break the cycle and come home to themselves.